Hello, everybody, and welcome back to ELF Live. We got our Monday morning show here today. I am with the one and only Matt Bressington. Hello, everybody in the chat. Look, we got Marcus back in the chat. Marcus missed his first show ever last week, but he's back. There we go. Matt, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, it was another week of pure events, pure ecstasy of European football. We're getting ever so close to the end of the year, so stakes are getting more and more every week.
Stakes are getting high. That's a great way of putting it. And we saw a couple things. We saw a clinching of a division and a playoff spot clinched. We saw a couple teams actually lose hope of any spot in the playoffs. Can you hear me, Matt?
Ooh, yeah, you went a little bit. These last couple of words I missed, but you're all good.
Okay. And we are going to go through all of the games and give our little breakdowns here. Everyone in the chat, feel free to join on in with us. And Matt, let's dive on into week 9 of the ELF season. Starting off first, let's see what the beautiful graphic that Maxie has put up here. Always a fan of those, seeing all the branding put together. First game we had, the one and only game on Saturday. This was actually the first time, I believe, that this happened. There was just a single game on Saturday, and it was the Milano Seaman versus the Fehérvár Enthrones. I have a lot of thoughts on this one because I actually called this game in the broadcast on the ELF Game Pass. But Matt, give us your thoughts on this rematch here played out in Hungary.
It was a primetime game, and last game was really entertaining. I thought this one was pretty entertaining too. It kind of seemed like both teams it didn't seem like both teams definitely were struggling in some parts of it. Milan went 1 for 11, and Enthrones went 1 for 12 on third down percentages, respectively. Not great, but they kind of it was weirdly exciting game. Like, I kind of really liked it. Mango had a good game. He got to Roby a lot, and he had a good performance as he tends to do. Toth as well. Both the Toth players were great at running back and receiver, respectively. Their defense held out. They kind of let it slip a little bit at the end. That weird punt situation was like insane, and then they gave up a little bit, but they really locked Milan up for the majority of this game. Like, Brockenhurst didn't play well at all. The run game was stifled for the majority. Crawford got like a little bit at the end. It kind of started to click, but never really there. Flores Calderon didn't get nearly enough targets. He only got 2 receptions on a day. I think he deserved more. Blair was great, but this was a pretty comfortable victory for the Enthrones, which is something where I am very not used to saying,
Absolutely, man. I mean, if we looked on Thursday, we did the pick'ems, and a hefty percentage of the fans had picked Milan for this game. So the Fehérvár Enthrones were a clear underdog, but you touched on it. I mean, it was actually way more of a comfortable win than the score indicated at the end. The Enthrones were leading by quite a bit and really getting a lot done. Jack Mangle, 23 for 34, 282 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's getting into a rhythm with Nathaniel Robitaille. And a thing that I like about the Enthrones is this is a team, obviously, that went, what did they go, 0-6 in the first half of the season before they got their first victories. They've now hit back-to-back wins. Jack Mangle, a lot of struggles in the first half of the season, but this franchise stuck with him. He's young. He's 24, 25 years old. I like that this franchise has decided, at least this year, to stick with their quarterback kind of through thick and thin. We're seeing him settle in a little bit, and now this team is finding a little bit of success. And I said this on the broadcast, too. I talked to Nathaniel Robitaille last week, and they spoke, or he told me how the team spoke together. They all sat down in a room after they had the beat-down loss 47-0 against Berlin a couple weeks ago. And they just hashed it out. They put everything on the table offensively, and they talked it out, and they got themselves on the same page. We've seen that now for the last 2 games, and the Enthrones are showing a little something. They were also having a lot of fun. You could see that these guys were enjoying playing football and winning in front of their home crowd. Robitaille, 119 yards. Like I said, him and Mango getting a little connection there. And Nandor Tot, the Hungarian wide receiver, he had 2 touchdowns. He looked good, man. So, like you see right here, they're doing the snow angels in the end zone for the celebration. They also did the bowling celebration. So it was fun to see the Enthroners have fun, man. That's kind of what I took away from this game.
Yeah, agreed. And I love the development of Mangle. I was really skeptical in the beginning of the year, but someone messaged me about why he had such a bad year in his senior year in college, and the fact the Enthrones were there for the development of a quarterback, which is something we have not seen in ELF. Is like the absolute, we are going to stick with this quarterback. We're going to develop him through his time in the ELF, ride the wave of rough times, and hopefully come out with a brighter result. And it looks like he's worked. Like, he's been great. He threw the pick and he had a fumble, so not a perfect game. But we've seen Milan's defense has been good. They've got former West Virginia corner. They've got Zach Blair, who's one of the best linebackers in the league. And this is not an easy team to pick apart. And he looked pretty comfortable for like the whole game. He didn't have a ton of pressure. The offensive line's improved. It looks like the addition of McCluskey at the tight end position helped with the blocking. Leo Cephalakos, the receiver, has given him some more options. Like, that receiver core is actually pretty good now. You got Roby, you got Leo, you got Sirac, you got Toff. Like, that's a pretty damn good receiver core. So it looks like it's coming together a little bit for the Enthrones, which is something I'm really like excited about, because this team has been a bottom feeder forever, and like, it's great to see them actually developing. It's really good for the league to see a team like this develop, and kind of gives the blueprint of someone like Prague to kind of develop off of.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. You touched on it. A lot of teams this year have been kind of trigger happy when just getting rid of a quarterback, signing a new guy, getting him in there. Some teams having 3 different quarterbacks already in the first half of the season. And I think that this is where you're going to see hopefully a little bit of long-term building. And who knows where the Enthroners go from here. But even just these last 2 wins and getting a little bit of a momentum streak, I think is monumental for this franchise. Find a little bit of positivity here. Although we see this was a little bit of an ugly play. Nathaniel Robitaille muffing the punt and the Milano Seaman being able to hop on it into the end zone. But this one ended up being 27-17. Like we said, it was a little bit more of a comfortable win for the Enthroners than the score indicated. Milano Seaman unable to get much going on. You touched on it also, just to wrap it up. Zachary Bronkhorst, who's usually not necessarily great through the air, but he is able to pick up first downs with his feet when plays break down. He wasn't doing that on Saturday at all. So that was kind of taken away from them as well. And that is what we got there from that game out in Hungary. Marcus says, I don't agree with that punt fumble / touchdown, though. I did see a couple people say they don't agree with that. And I actually don't know why. Matt, do you what are your thoughts on that? I believe it was a muffed fumble or muffed punt, and it was a live ball, and the Seaman recovered it in the end zone.
Yeah, I mean, I questioned the decision to punt. I was really confused of why they punted, and I thought they'd just go for it. But
yeah,
I mean, that's why I'm not a coach. That's why I'm a scout and analyst, because they make their decision. It turned. I thought it was a touchdown. No one had possession of the ball until it crossed the end zone, so I don't see a reason why it would be disallowed.
There you go, Marcus. Let us know your thoughts on that. But we are going to move on now to the highly anticipated Western Conference showdown. 2 heavyweight, famous cities, famous European cities. Paris Musketeers versus the Madrid Bravos, both coming in at 5-1. It's a Western Conference showdown. I had kind of a lot to say about this last week. I'll let you go first, Matt. Talk to us about this Western Conference matchup.
This game was interesting. It was kind of a chess match, right? Both teams kind of had some kind of issues. Zach didn't have his greatest game. Duncan didn't have his greatest game. Ugman got hurt right at the start of the game. So Valombo came in, had a good game, 14 carries for 161 yards, jumped over 2 people and fumbled the ball on the same plays. That was pretty impressive. Edwards got a lot done on the ground as well. Like, the receivers doing what they do, Sound, Tekadam doing very well. Austin Mitchell's had a slower part of this, part of the second half. But it was a defense for Paris. We saw Dawson Dale's that great return. Digan Gomez was great again. Rogier was great. Jet Laos had an amazing season. Killarney had that block punt where you can see there. And Richardson was good too. And so was Beard and Zeb. They've got a great defense. That was kind of what won them this game. Madrid looked kind of Obi didn't have his best of games. Patterson, Willie was great, and Seneda had a good game too. But they never really got into full gear. And it's not like they played badly. They just never really played to the high level of Paris. They never overcame Paris. They just kind of let down. They got into a bit of a rut, I think, in the second half. They couldn't get much done. They only scored 7 points in the first quarter, nothing in the second and third, and then finished off with 6 points like kind of late in the fourth. It wasn't a great performance by the Madrid Bravos. They allowed points in every single quarter, which is never a good reason for success. Their defense kind of got overwhelmed by by the Rhinos, over 200 yards rushing. So they did do well. Paris did enough to win. It was a good performance by Paris, but I expected a little bit more from 2 5-1 teams. I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah, I think that is kind of what's itching in the back of my brain there. I did feel like I expected a little bit more from this game from both teams. But, I did go on a big Madrid Bravos rant last week. Tino in the chat says time for Nalf to go on another Madrid Bravos rant. And I will a little bit here, but I'm going to bite my tongue just a bit because I did call this and say that I thought Paris would defeat the Madrid Bravos pretty handedly. The game, though, I think was a little bit closer than I expected it would be, especially when you take into account that the Paris Musketeers scored on a block punt touchdown and a scoop and score. Dawson Dales, fastest man in the league, 4.2 speed. We see him score 2 touchdowns now this year so far. So he had a scoop and score and a punt block for a touchdown. So offensively, the teams were kind of a little bit evenly matched scoring wise. But then it didn't end up being the magnificent performance that I thought that we would kind of have a back and forth of here. Obviously, you touched on a real difference there. The rushing, Paris was able to have success on the ground. They rushed for 279 yards, whereas Madrid, Dwayne Obi didn't really get going on, just 84 total rushing yards for them. And I think that definitely played into it. I am very curious to see where these two teams go from here. Well, I don't know, Matt. What are your thoughts? Well, if these teams play 10 times, what is the split? How many times does Paris win? How many times does Madrid win?
I think Paris might take a 7-3 or a 6-4. Like, they are probably the more talented team, but like you said, they won the momentum swings. Which was one thing I said about them before, that they lost the momentum swings. They won them this time. They lost the one against Ryan Fire. They lost the big ones. They won them against the Galaxy. They're a moments team. They're kind of like England in European football. They're a moments team. They need those big moments to go over the top. We saw with the scoop and score. We saw with the block punt. So they get them. It's just, are they going to have these moments against a team as refined, well coached, and kind of excellent as we've seen as someone like Serge or with Vienna? Like, these teams do not make a ton of mistakes. We need to see Paris kind of separate themselves from only getting these, like, big play teams are great and are very fun to watch, but the teams that can sustain it over the course of 4 quarters, over the course of an hour, it's an hour game in total. It's not a one play game. You can lose a game in one play, but you can't win a game really that much in one big explosive play in an entire game. So I need to see them kind of overcome that and kind of separate themselves against a contender, because they've been close against all of them. They nearly lost against the Galaxy. They did lose against the Ryan Fire. They were only up by 6 points against Madrid into the second half. Like, they need to prove to me that they can win like a massive game and come into the playoffs with a little bit more momentum, and not just be a team that not gets lucky, but it's definitely benefiting from the momentum swings.
Right. Right now, on my minds, the tier 1 teams are Vienna, Stuttgart, and Rhein Fire. And I in my mind, I've got Paris as kind of like a tier 2 team, yet to show me that they deserve to be up there in that top tier. But this ended up being 16-point ball game. Paris flying on down to Spain and beating the Bravos, bringing them to 6-1, and the Bravos will drop to 5-2. And we'll see what that means for playoff implications a little bit later when we look at the playoff bracket, the update of that. Now, moving on to our next game, Vienna Vikings versus the Berlin Thunder. This is a rematch of what was a very interesting game earlier in the season, where the Berlin Thunder were leading the Vienna Vikings up until the fourth quarter and actually looked quite good at times. This weekend, a little bit different. Matt, talk to us about this Eastern Conference rematch.
It was kind of a flat game. I think that's kind of what I got from it. Like, it was close, but it didn't seem really that competitive. It seemed like Vienna did have the upper hand. They kept consistent. It's kind of what I talked about with Paris, but Vienna did keep it very consistent. They just chance plays like block punts and scoop and scores. Ben Holmes played lights out, 21 for 25, 253 yards and 3 touchdowns. Great performance by him. Kerry Bajarian was great as well, 123 and a touchdown. Reese Horn. Noah Torre might have the best hands in the league, full stop. Like, Noah Torre's been phenomenal. Like, he catches so many great balls. And their defense held up well. It was just kind of Berlin never really, I don't know, they didn't really turn up, They only got 9 points, which is very uncharacteristic of Berlin. They usually do score a lot more. They didn't score anything in the fourth quarter. They only scored 3 in the second. So it was like a kind of what we expect from them with a poor second half. But it just, they never really rocked up. They kind of played flat. Aaron Jackson did what he could, but apart from that, there wasn't really much going in terms of receiving. Sullivan didn't light the world on fire. Their rushing game still isn't fantastic. They didn't get a ton of sacks defensively. They didn't get a ton of, they didn't really get any turnovers. Like, there were momentum swings or memorable. Like, I don't know. It was a good game, but I just kind of felt it was overshadowed by better quality games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we got to shine the spotlight there on Alex Malchow's favorite player, Ben VP. He did have a day. He went 21 for 25, 253 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, just dicing up defenses and distributing the ball. I think he had 7 or 8 receivers catch the ball. Always like that. Always like to see when you have a high distribution of wide receivers. They had Beerbaumer back. And I mean, you touched on it last week, Matt. What do the Vienna Vikings need to do before the signing deadline? Just get healthy. And getting a guy like him back opens up the offense so much. I remember there was a 3rd and 8 where they just line him up out at the wide receiver position, just on an island, and they just throw it up to him, and he's easily able to convert those. I mean, he's your Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski clutch tight end figure right there. So that's just going to be fantastic for the Vienna Vikings coming into the second half of the season. He's a matchup nightmare. Kari Pajarinen went for 123. They're able to run the ball, and Berlin is not able to run the ball. What is that, man? Why can Berlin just not run the football all season long? I mean, they made steps in the offseason to try to improve this, but it hasn't really improved all that much. What do you think?
Yeah, it's so weird, right? They got Ali Khalifi, who's a homegrown and a former offensive rookie of the year, and they haven't used him. I'm not sure if he's hurt, if he just don't fit the scheme, but I thought they'd be using him a lot more, just like as like a scat back, someone they can have out of backfield in the receiving game as well as in the carrying game. But like, is it? I don't know. Like, they have a good offensive line that can block. They have very talented players in the offensive line. Lavin, Harry Sayer's a great player that I think people need to pay more attention about. Very aggressive on the outside. Probably one of the more like premier tackles, very underrated. But they just don't really seem to do it. I think maybe they lack a little bit of like that first burst, like the first quick step, like explosiveness of their running backs. Maybe isn't up to the level of some of the other ones. No disrespect to Albert, he's a good running back, but he's not explosive of that first step as some of his contemporaries. Maybe it's a play calling thing. Maybe the protection isn't called as effective as it could be, but they've struggled with defending the run. They've struggled rushing the ball. It just kind of seems like an overall Berlin issue. And this is the same thing from last year. They had a loaded receiver group with Seaman, Vilcek. I mean, even Vilcek hasn't really been involved as much as we would expect.
No.
Like, at all. He's one of the best receivers in Europe, and we haven't seen much of him at all. Have they taken a step down offensively from last year? I'm not so sure. They got more consistency with Sullivan. Last couple of games have been a bit more shaky. But like, last year was kind of the same issue. This year, they think they need a bit more run game. They need to use Robin a bit more. They need to get more aggressive on this run offense. It's a very confusing team that this has been a thing for a while, even though they've made good signing. I was very praising of Ali Khalifi as a running back joining that team. I thought it was going to be great for them.
Yeah.
They just haven't really put the pieces together. They've got them. I feel like they've got the pieces to have a good run game. They just haven't effectively shown it in an actual game situation.
Well, let's say that if this was a 7-on-7 league, Berlin would be great. Take out that run game and just throw the ball and not have to defend or produce run. Then Berlin would be fantastic. But this one ended up being kind of a runaway at the end. 34-9 for the Vienna Vikings. There is a little bit of a good heartwarming story out of here. So apparently the stadium workers in Berlin took away the horns and noisemakers from the Vienna Vikings fans there. They said it's not allowed here. And the Berlin Thunder fans acted in solidarity and put away theirs as well. It's just a nice little heartwarming story. We touched on it here. American football in Europe is a niche and growing sport. The fan bases, while competing on the field, support each other off the field. It's one big football family, all working towards the goal of growing this league, growing the sport in Europe. So you like to see something like that. That's a nice little heartwarming story out of there. But this one ends up being pretty big, 25-point victory for the Vienna Vikings, who remain undefeated. Coach Kalaikai out there, been there for couple of decades, and he's got the Vikings continuing to roll. And they've got the number 1 seed right now in the ELF as we head into week 10. All right, next game, we have got the one that I was at on the sideline, the Rovslaw Panthers versus the Stuttgart Surge. And I've certainly got a lot to say about this one. So, Matt, we'll let you go first and give us your expertise before I go on a rambling tirade.
Yeah, I'll keep my one brief. I do want to hear you rambling tirades. I don't want to take up all your time, but like it was dominant start to finish. Like so, the first quarter was kind of close a little bit, but not really. Like they still looked pretty convincing. Matty Ice has not been as ice cold. Maybe you could say he's been ice cold, depending on how you want to see the situation. But 3 interceptions for him. Again, it's kind of hard to judge him off of this when they've had their own issues with the quarterback and. They got rid of Uri, they got rid of Duncan. They've had struggles with pretty much everything. Like offensively, they are kind of awful, like one of the worst in the league. They didn't put any points in this game. They were 1 for 8 on third down percentages, 0 on fourth down efficiency as well. Like they just weren't good at all. Defensively, they got shredded by Stewart, Meyer, and Geyer collectively. Run game was fine. I didn't have a running back go over 10 carries, and they still managed to be effective on a run game. Riley was fantastic because he's Riley. They just kind of took a massive victory and they looked pretty comfortable doing it. It's kind of similar to what they've done the last couple of weeks, bar the Raiders game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just the Surge are such a complete team. They're just so good on all levels. They're so well coached. There's so much unity on this team. This is what you get when you have continuity and you've got a coaching staff that's been together for a long time. I mean, it is so fun and so cool to be on that sideline, see how this team interacts from coaches, from head coach on down to the players. Very, very impressive. And we talked a little bit about it earlier when we talked about Jack Mangle, but this is Jordan Newman's 3rd full year with Riley Hennessy as a quarterback. I think that's the longest head coach quarterback tenure in the ELF right now. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. Does anybody else have a longer? What's that?
Maybe Sullivan in the first 3. No, yeah, with Costling, the first 3 years with Sullivan, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Okay, but now that's shatters. This is the longest current one. Yeah. And I think we're seeing that, man. I think that we're just seeing this continuity. And obviously the Panthers, they've been through 3 quarterbacks this year, and all of them are having similar troubles. Felt a little bad for Matty Ice. Great guy, great player, but just couldn't get much done against that Surge defense, which is insane. And they've got a unique situation there. They have 2 defensive coordinators, co-defensive coordinators, Cody Pastorino and Johnny Brenner. And these are 2 guys who have also worked together for 10 plus years. And so they've got a lot of great stuff going on there. Their defensive backfield is insane. You made that video about Chad a while back. They also got Mitch Fettig and Raheem Wilson, who are 2 CFL, NFL cusp talents right there. And so we just saw an interception from Mitch Fettig. Fun fact, I almost got killed on that as I was filming it. He ran right on into me. But, I just beefed up a little on the sideline, and I stayed standing. I took a hit from Mitch Fettig, and I did not go down.
It's impressive, man. That's get you back in the league, right?
Get me back in this league, Maxie. But the thing that really I like about the Stuttgart Surge is that they play together as a team, and we see a lot of teams in this league just going on the carousel with different positions, whether it's A imports or E imports. We've seen it a lot with quarterbacks. And this is kind of what happens when you stick with guys and you try to build something long-term and not try and just go plug and play. Someone's not playing well, get them out, get somebody new in. And this is what happens when you're able to have this type of continuity. On the Panthers side, do want to give a shout out to Devin Burrell. He had an absolute day. He had 11 tackles, 2 PBUs, 2 TFLs, and he was going up against Darrell Stewart, one of the best wide receivers in this league. And although Darrell did end up having a great day on some of these deep balls, Devin Burrell was able to just break those up. And he's quite a bit shorter than Darrell Stewart as well. So it was very impressive to see him compete like that. So we got to give a little shout out to him. And then obviously some people are upset that this game was called early after the 3rd quarter. This was totally out of the league's hands. All the players and the league had decided, okay, we're going to go out and finish the 4th quarter. But as everyone was going out to warm up again for the 4th quarter, the owner or operator of the stadium of Gazi Stadion and the city of Stuttgart made the call that we're not allowed to play on this field anymore. It's too dangerous. So it's out of the league's hands, out of the Stuttgart Surge's hands. And that is kind of what happened there. That's just a little bit of my thoughts there on that Stuttgart Surge matchup, Matt. What do you think?
I mean, like you said, that defense. I love their defense, man. Like Malumbo is one of the most underrated players in the league. He's incredible at D tackle, and he's a D1 player. He played at Colorado. Like I knew he was going to be good, but I didn't know he was going to be this good. He's amazing. Fettig's probably one of the most underrated, underappreciated Americans in the league. He's incredible. Kondo Warasu, Brett, amazing. Like I love him. Like there's so many amazing players in the Surge defense that it kind of gets lost in the shuffle of just this is a great unit. And you forget about the individuals that really make it fantastic.
That's a great point. I mean, you go down and you look at who's on the field there. And I mean, they've got like 16, 17 guys that rotate in who are all starter level. Just in the chat there, Blue 11 says, I think it's its second year. It's his second year with Jordan Newman, Riley Hennessy connection. Second year in the ELF, but they were together in the GFL previously for a year and some change as well. So that's why I say 3 years. This one ends at 40-0 after 3 quarters. Surge moving on to 7-0, and the Panthers having a little bit of woes as they took the long bus ride back to Rovslaw. Then we've got a Central Conference showdown. Helvetic Mercenaries, who had the MVP of the league last week in Carlton Aiken Jr., show off against the Munich Ravens. What are your thoughts on this one, Matt?
I mean, Mercenaries have got some dogs in them, man. I can't lie. I was upset seeing Carlton Aiken go down. It was obviously not what anyone wants when your starting quarterback goes down. But like, the Mercenaries really showed that they have got like an incredible amount of heart. We knew that anyway because they've come out and they've played and they've won a game even without a head coach at the point when it was all changing over. But Anthony Brown, the FB, did a good job in he actually had a pretty decent passing day considering the situation. Spiller is on track for one of the Rookie of the Year. He's going to win offensive or he's going to win overall. Like it's not as big of a gap as people think. He had 165 and a touchdown on the day. He did great on the Munich Ravens defense, which has some great defensive backs. And he is a young player that managed to do that. So I think that needs to be talked about and how well they did. Munich, though, they did what they needed to do. Scored 31 in the first half. They looked comfortable. Chad Jeffries was on fire. Tommy was finally back to being hopefully full health. He only had 4 rushes, but got 99 yards out of those 4 rushes. He was also effective in the pass game, as we've seen him be effective in the pass game over his time in the ELF. He has 72 yards and 2 touchdowns there. Defensively, they did a good job. They gave up a little bit more than I expected them to, but I think they kind of got a little bit maybe a bit too comfortable. They allowed some of the big plays. And I think that knowing Kentrell a little bit, I think he's going to be quite hard on them during practice and just try and tighten that up because they can't do that against playoff teams. They've got a really easy schedule. We've said they can make a playoff push if they play it right. You cannot give up 20 points to a team without a quarterback. That's not good. It's really quite worrying, but I do think that they hopefully will steady the ship, and I think they should be fine. But it's definitely some cause for concern in Munich. It's not all smooth sailing.
No, you're right. And we got to give a shout out to AFB. He went 9 for 16, which him not being a quarterback, we've seen a couple starting quarterbacks in this league have games that look just like that. Didn't throw a pick, had a touchdown, stepping in there, just being a ball player. Got to give a special spotlight to that. But that's a great point, giving up 20 points to a team that is not having a quarterback, essentially. So that's not great. We talked about it. The Munich Ravens are smooth sailing for the next 4 games, 5, including this one that they just won pretty handily. But for the next 4 games, these should all be victories for them. And then they come to their rematch against the Raiders T-Roll. It's very, very likely that the winner of that game, that will decide who goes into the playoffs. This is a team that needs to continually improve week by week and kind of fill in those gaps and patch up any of those holes that they have if they want to really be able to take on the Raiders there and sneak their way into the playoffs, which is their expectation. That was the expectation of the Munich Ravens coming into this season. A little bit of a disappointment in the first half. Maybe finally now they're going to find their footing in this middle section here. You got a guy like, Malik Stanley now on the roster. He went crazy, 6 for 130 and a touchdown. He looks great. And also, you touched on it. It's great to see Oyewu back in Oyewu form from 2023. like the 99 yards on 4 carries and then 72 more through the air with 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's what we like to see. Just his the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield or to run it, whatever it may be. He's able to offer value in so many different ways, and it's great to see him back kind of at full capacity there. But yeah, that's the biggest takeaway for me is the Munich Ravens. That's their story. Is that are they going to continue to get better each week, or will they fall into a little bit of a lull playing down to some of these weaker teams and then have a hard time when they inevitably face the Raiders T-Roll later in the season? What do you think, Matt? What is your instinct on this?
I don't. It's a weird one, man. The matchup is a great matchup. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's probably recency bias. I'm favoring Munich because the Raiders didn't play, so I haven't seen them this week in a performance. But they looked pretty good against the Surge, and Munich didn't. So that's something if you're going to watch like tail of the tape, you got to compare how teams play against each other. You could favor the Raiders if you're going on bias, like recency bias. You could go with the Ravens. Like, it's not an easy game to predict. I think that could be one of the best, like most highly anticipated games of the year if everyone kind of goes how we expect them to go.
Right.
Munich's offense is getting better. Awewo's back, hopefully not injured, and can rejuvenate to full health after not taking as many carries as possible, which is good. I think that's good for him getting back to full health. Malik Stanley, as you mentioned, they do have a very good offense. It's getting better every week. They had a good showcase to try out some of the more lesser known starts of the playbook and get some stuff out about that. So I think it's a good victory for them moving forward offensively. I still need to see them do it against like a top team. They haven't done it against a top team yet in this league.
That's exactly it. What are they going to look like against a top team? And this one ends here 52-23. So the Ravens able to pick up that win and go plus 500 once again. Now moving on to the next game. Rhein Fire, Frankfurt Galaxy. Back at the big stadium. Rhein Fire looking very Rhein Fire-ish. Thomas Lustig is in the chat. He says, hey, guys. Hey, Thomas. Welcome to the chat. Give us your thoughts. Matt, talk to me about this Western Conference matchup. A matchup that we've said it before. The Frankfurt Galaxy are haunted by. And yes, we're very motivated by their losses to the Rhein Fire in previous seasons to build this roster that they currently have. What happened this weekend, Matt?
Galaxy kind of did a bit of a Berlin-esque move. They looked pretty all right in the little bits of it and then ruined it in the last half of the game. Like, Rhein Fire tore them apart. Also, first and foremost, how can we mention this game without talking about Glenn getting the single game rushing record? Congratulations to him as a fellow Brit. Very proud. He's done like wonders this year. He's been unstoppable. He is probably the most unplayable player in the league this year. He looks incredible. 20 plus touchdowns. He's still gonna have like quite a lot of the year to go yet, and he's still scoring touchdowns. 4 for him in a day again, 100 yards, which is an off day for him considering. Jadrian is back in MVP form, but this could be the first time we ever see an MVP and an MVP in the backfield together. If they go, if they eventually wins the MVP award, I would have 2 of the league's like total MVPs in one backfield. It's pretty incredible. Jadrian is fantastic. Harlan is finally back in his groove. McKnight looks back from full health and makes some spectacular catches over the middle. The defense, Hugo Cagles absolutely deserves a shout out. 3 sacks for him in the day. Flormore Simon was excellent. Tony Anderson got himself a touchdown. Like, Aaron Donkor is still great. Amari Williams is one of the best in the league. Marius Kenzie. Like, there's so many great players. Max Parkinson, shout out to him, another Brit. Got his first sack in the year left. There's so many things to love about the Rhein Fire. Galaxy kind of look competitive. You see them as a score. It was close until the second half, and then 27 points by the Rhein Fire in the third quarter. It's rather outrageous. For the Galaxy, though, like the run game wasn't working. Sandro's been riddled with injuries throughout his European career. We saw that last year.
Yeah,
McKay didn't light the world on fire. They just didn't really make anything. They couldn't move on the defense, and then Jadrian was absolutely ripping that ball long and torching their DBs. So, like, it was the same thing we've seen, 6 times? 6-0 against the Galaxy now, I'm pretty sure. It's the first time we haven't really seen anything to show that the Galaxy are going to come back from this.
Exactly. And here in the chat, we say Thomas Lustig says the Fire showed during the first time that they are beatable when the opponent manages to play at their best for the whole game. Interesting. And Marcus says the Glenn Fire win again. Oops, I mean Ryan Fire. Glenn, brutal day for him. Barely cracking 3-digit yards. Honestly, pathetic performance from Glenn Tunga. I mean, just about half as productive as he usually is. He had 4 touchdowns, whatever. That's average for him. So tough one for Glenn. Luckily, Jadrian Gator Clark is back to 2023 form. We said this a lot on the show when a lot of people were ripping on the Ryan Fire on their passing game that they're going to find it. It's going to click. They've got injuries. They're going to get that groove and that chemistry back. And I felt like this was the first time where I really saw it. You touched on it. Jadrian's deep ball was just beautiful, and some of those just coming off the play action. I mean, obviously, when you have such an elite running back in the backfield, Glenn Tunga, just being such a weapon, that play action is going to really open things up. Jadrian looked very comfortable and just diming it up, and obviously getting guys like Quofi back in form, and McKnight is just a fantastic asset. Here we see Glenn. Just look at that change of direction and just the stop on a dime. Guys just flying past him. I mean, he's just so entertaining to watch. I just think that the Rhine Fire are getting back to their 2023 form, and they're going to be very dangerous in the second half of the season. For me, Frankfurt, Matthew McKay was a little bit meh-kay. I wrote that joke this morning.
Bravo.
13 for 20 for 140. I mean, just not really able to do much. No interceptions, but just not enough against the Rhine Fire. I don't know, man. Rhine Fire looking dangerous and deadly at the right time. I mean, if you're going to have some struggles, beginning of the season is where to have them. And then you can kind of hit stride going to the back half of the season. You got veteran coaches there that
know you got bye weeks coming up too. Like they can rest up. They've had their injuries, but like I've always said how much of a fan I am of Haaland. He's one of my favorite receivers in the league. Just he's so well balanced, and he just unlocks this offense and gives them so many more options. We've seen it. The last 2 games he's been performing is the 2 games where they played probably the best. You know, he torched Hamburg. He only had a couple catches, but those 2 catches were magnificent. And in this game, he only had 3 catches and 1 rush. And you can see on the highlights, he's everywhere. Like, he's a phenomenal player. And he helps with the run game because he's the best blocking receiver in the league. He's better than most tight ends as a blocker. Like, he's incredible, and he's unlocks this offense. I'm so happy that he's back, like, performing at a high level.
Actually, last time I spoke with Jadrian on a podcast, he said that exact same thing, that Kofi is the best blocking wide receiver in this league. And just look at that. Rhine Fire able to run away with it 48-13. Again, it was a 13-14 game at halftime. And then the Rhine Fire able to just crack it open. It's similar to their playoff showdown last year, where I can't remember exactly, but Frankfurt might have even been ahead at halftime. And then the Rhine Fire just able to break it open in the second half. And this is a team that's hitting their stride. So that ends that Western Conference matchup. To our last game, another Western Conference matchup. The Hamburg Sea Devils against what is becoming one of my favorite teams in this league, the Cologne Centurions. Let's talk about the Centurions, Matt. What do you think?
Last week, I'm gonna start with this one. Legalize it, baby.
There we go.
We look great again. Like it was. The score was not reflective. We talked about that in a couple of the other games. This was not really a very close game. Cologne looked pretty dominant all the way through. Hamburg scored 18 in the fourth, and by that point, it was kind of already over.
Right.
I want to talk about Cologne first because, oh my gosh, like we looked efficient. He looked composed. He looked great. His running ability is something we've never doubted, but we had doubts in his passing game. He's got a lot more comfortable. I think we talked about it. Hamburg's changeover on all of their American spots over the last 2 weeks. That was definitely affected in their coverage. But we look great. 23 for 33, 217 yards. 2 touchdowns through the air, 90 on the ground to a touchdown there as well. Gerald Almin, a little bit slower than previous games, only 24 yards for him. But then, like, this defense was locked down. Of course, how can we talk about his defense without talking about Bijan Harris? Probably one of the best. He might even be in line for an all-star. Like, generally, he might be an all-star player. And he's played, 3 games? And in those 3 games, I would argue there has not been a player that's been as effective league wide, like
Oh,
any position. He's been incredible. 2 more picks for him. I said on my platform, Fulford cannot look at Harris at all, ever in this game. He did, and he paid the price for it. 2 breakups, 2 interceptions, not even really close. And Cologne looked like they wanted this a lot, and Hamburg never really looked like they really wanted it. Like they didn't look like they arrived and then
yeah.
Fulford didn't play very well. He threw 3 picks. The running game was meh. Like the stats are deceptive again because Hardy Canito had 8 carries for 89 yards and a touchdown. I said last year he was my rookie of the year favorite. Like I've been high on Hardy Canito for a while, but he hasn't been as effective as I would have hoped. The defense at Strater was amazing. Like he was
Oh,
absolutely excellent. His penetration on the line as a box safety linebacker hype, like oh my goodness. And then the return was incredible. Like Strater, very happy for him because we enjoyed watching him in Helvetic, and unfortunately it didn't work out. But I feel like he's landed a better system that can use that in there. Like he looked amazing.
100%. And from the chat, Thomas Lustig says, hot take, Cologne would be a playoff team if they were in the Eastern Conference, maybe even the Central. I back this hot take 1,000%. And this is also another team that is stuck with their quarterback, similarly to the Enthroners, a quarterback that had a lot of struggles early on. And we've seen from the behavior of some other teams, they would have gotten rid of Isaiah Weed after a couple bad games. Cologne has stuck with them, and we don't want to speak too soon, but it seems like they might also be able to hit a little bit of a stride. He had one of his best games this past weekend. He's been looking good the last couple of weeks, and just giving a guy time to settle into this. And I think the teams will be rewarded for having a little bit of that patience and that attitude of kind of building a team and sticking with a guy. Yeah, Strater, man, he had 15 tackles, 2 TFLs, a fumble recovery, and the punt return touchdown. Talk about a debut. It's just great to see a guy who was let go by the Mercenaries to come out and ball out. It's a little bit of a, hey, I told you so type game. But then, man, Bijan Harris, I just love defense, and you said it. Don't look at him. Do not throw the ball to his side. I wish they listened to you. Actually, I don't. I'm glad they didn't, because I love seeing Bijan Harris make plays, and he's going to keep doing that. I mean, you're right. He could be in the conversation to be an all-star, even though he came so late in the season. We'll see how if he's able to keep all of that up. But just the Cologne Centurions, man. And they're playing the Madrid Bravos next week. And again, I don't want to get too conspiracy theory again like I did last week, but pull out your tinfoil hats. I think that they might make that very competitive. We'll see. We're going to talk more about those on Thursday. Do you think that's crazy, Matt?
No, I love Cologne. I'm so on the hype train. Like they looked so comfortable. I think they take out Frankfurt again potentially. They could challenge Madrid. I might be buying into the craziness a little bit.
Matt, you want to hear my real conspiracy that I didn't say on Thursday? My real conspiracy is that Cologne ends up number 3 in the Western Conference. Gets in the playoffs. What? All right. Okay. All right. I'm just saying it here. No, we'll see. It's on the record.
All right.
It's on the record.
Yeah. I mean, that's something. I like it. I like it.
Hey, there you go. I'm on the hype train. This one ends. Yeah, Hamburg able to score some touchdowns in the end there after Cologne had clearly secured it. And this one ends at a 1-score game, 32-25, but was quite a bit more comfortable for the Centurions, who are looking solid. All right, Matt, those are our games from week 9. Now, chat, we have got, let's take a look here actually at the standings first. Let's look at this. Anything jumping out to you at our standings after week 9? Chat, you guys let us know as well. What do you think, Matt?
I mean, first thing, congratulations to Vienna Vikings clinching the division. First team in the ELF to clinch the division. Congratulations to them. Very, very impressively done. Rather flawlessly done, 9-0. Look great. Can't complain. I think I said about the division with that top half of the West last week. I think the Raiders and the Ravens is just such a fascinating matchup, but just how they're going to finish the second half of the year and then end up against each other. Like it's cinema, it's cinema.
100%, man. That's probably what I'm most excited about. I love seeing the Fehérvár Enthroners grab another win there. I mean, they didn't really move in the standings, but that 2 is looking solid for them there. Stuttgart Surge and Vienna Vikings, the only 2 undefeated teams. The Rhine Fire also at the top there. They've been looking great. I do have my eye, though, like I said, on that Western Conference, that 3 and 4 spot. And I'm calling right now, there might be a flip between 3 and 4 by the end of the year. Wait, we'll revisit this at the end of the year. Okay.
I like it.
But obviously, if Cologne doesn't beat Madrid next week, then I call it off. But
you're never going to see this clip again now.
We'll delete this clip. Max, you destroy the evidence. Yes. But if not, then we make a reel out of this and we put this all over social media. Okay, there we go. And this is the playoff picture after week 9. Looking very, very similar. The only difference is now after that Paris and Madrid game, Paris is currently sitting at the home field advantage for that wild card. But everything else is still locked into the place. For people who are confused why the Stuttgart Surge dropped out of the having the bye week, well, the Rhine Fire have more wins than them. It comes into how many bye weeks you've had so far. The Surge just have 7 wins because they've only had 7 games. But if they win out, they would eventually return to that, and they would have the bye week. Those playoffs are going to be fun, man. Oh, my gosh.
So many combinations I want to watch but can't. Like,
what will be a playoff combo that you would love to see, a game that you would love to see?
See, like, I would like to see if Fire and Paris split the games. I'd like to see a best of 3. That could be really good. I mean, Vienna versus Fire intrigues me. Surge potentially, and Fire in the playoffs as a part 2 could be interesting. I think that even someone like Paris and Vienna, the chance to see them like play each other is like, I think that's good. Like, both of those defenses are incredible, and both their offenses are really good. Like, every single game, you can make every single combination. I'd watch every single one of them, no doubt.
It is gonna be a fun couple of weeks during playoffs, and then eventually the ELF championship game. We'll be there that weekend. You guys, if you don't have your get your tickets for that and go to that. Make a whole weekend out of it. Come to the honors show. I'm gonna be hosting that. I'll be all dressed up. Probably pretty sweaty on stage. That's what I do. So I'd like to see you guys there. And now we've got a little bit of a news segment, just a quick little news segment, a recap. We're going to start doing on Thursday. We're going to start doing some more hot takes. Okay. And then on Mondays, we're going to review them. We're going to have a segment here where we were right and where we were wrong. So we didn't do any crazy hot takes last week, but we had a little bit of kind of reasonable takes. Now we're going to hop on into this segment really quickly of where we were right and where we were wrong. Matt, first one's you. Talk about it.
I mean, a wise man once said, "Do not judge me on my correct things. Judge me on my mistakes, because I make so few of them." But one of my mistakes was Madrid will keep it competitive. They didn't look great against Paris. I thought they'd be a lot more involved. I thought they'd be able to stop the Paris defense a little bit more, create some more turnovers. We've seen Paris struggle with fumbles. Madrid have playmakers that can force those fumbles, like Pablo Rey, who I did that project on, who's an outstanding player, and their linebacker core. But they've had a few injuries, and that was definitely a factor with Jen Embry being out. I thought they would be more competitive than they were. Duncan didn't light up the defense, but I didn't expect him to. I thought Obi would be able to be more physical, but the size of that Paris front line with Mamadou Sai and all the other, and Jet Lau has been great this year as well. And he's a player that I underappreciate coming into this. Like, there have been so many things I thought were going to be a little bit different, and they just fell short of expectations a little bit. I can maybe, with the you talking about Madrid, I bought in to the anti-conspiracy a little bit too high, but it was something I was wrong on.
You know, when in a relationship, when one person takes a strong stance one way, the other person naturally feels the inclination to go the other way. And that's kind of what happens here with us as co-hosts here. You know, I was going pretty hard on this here, and in the chat, Thomas Lustig copying Colin Cowherd. I see, absolutely. We stole this directly from Colin Cowherd. It's a great segment. We're going to be doing it, the European version. Jamal is in the chat. He says Surge are the best team in the league. You're making me happy there, Jamal. Maxie, can you move on to the next one? What do we got? Where they were right. Matt, you were right about this one.
I was very right about this one. Like I said, I'm right on so many things. It was hard to pick one. Like Vienna Vikings, all they need to do is get healthy. Beer Bomber's back. Amazing. They have Morales, who was great, and they are healthier. Ken Hike looks better in the system now that he's adjusted. This Vienna team's healthy. They got their quarterback back that they've started the season with. They built the offense for. Torre is, like I said, one of the best prospect receivers we've ever seen in this league. He is on track for like the best rookie year ever for for a receiver. He has great hands and everything. I go about him all day, but they need to get healthy, and they did, and they looked very, very comfortable against one of the most dangerous teams that we've talked about. Like we've said, oh, they could have won this game. They could have won this game. They were so close to winning this game. There was zero like chance for really to Berlin to win this in the final quarter. Like Vienna took over, and it was that healthiness, it was that experience, it was that freshness from people like Beer Bomber, who's had a few weeks off. He's not 100% because he was injured, but he came in game ready, wanting it, and came out and put a performance.
He's so good, man. I mean, he's just such a weapon. It's what a great player to have on the Vienna Vikings for that team. Good for them, but also just great for us to have a player like that in the league, and great for him to be back. But yeah, you were right about it. I went on and on about the Stuttgart Surge, how they do so many things right, how they have so much depth, great coaching. And it's the same thing with the Vienna Vikings. And that's a great point. They just got to get healthy and entering the second half of the season. They're doing just that. Obviously, Ben Holmes is back too, and he's looking good. Ben VP, hashtag Ben VP. So there is that. Maxie, what's our next one? This one, Matt, let me just speak on your behalf really quick. All right. We're just real quick. If you're doing ELF fantasy, which you should be doing, fantasy.europeanleague.football, and you want to crack that top 10, listen to what Matt says every week about fantasy. Okay. Look, we got this. This is a real photo. Like I said, he lectured at Oxford and Cambridge on ELF fantasy choices. That is from one of his lectures. So just listen. Okay, Matt, go ahead.
Here's the reason why I don't have a fantasy team, because it would be too unfair, right? I'd be winning every week, and I want people to be competitive. It would be ridiculous, right? Exactly. So I give my information out for free. I got every single one of the ridiculous right. I said Jack Mangold would be good. Jack Mangold was good. I said Carey was going to be great against Berlin. He got 123 and a touchdown. I said Glenn was going to break the record, and Glenn broke the record in his division rival. 4 touchdowns. That's what wins you those games. 100 yards. And he also had a couple of receptions up as well. I was right on every single thing. I talked about there were some players I didn't pick, and I still was right about Geyer as well. He got a touchdown, and maybe maybe Stewart had a little bit more yards, but Geyer had a touchdown. That's ultimately what matters more in fantasy. This was a flawless week for me.
There we go. Okay. So everybody, if you want to catch these, you got to tune in on Thursdays. We'll do it near the end of the show on Thursdays, because you have to set your rosters by Friday at midnight. So tune in, polish up your roster by the end of the week, and you'll be good to go. You'll be cracking the top 10 like Jamal, Athletes Forum, who is number 7 right now. We're in the presence of greatness. He is in the chat. All right, Maxie, show mine here real quick. Nick, Madrid goes down, and there we are with my conspiracy. I went off on a crazy rant last week, a little bit wordy, but my main points were that I don't think I'm buying Madrid stock as much as some people are. Now, we saw Paris defeated them 29-13. Now, I'm not beating my chest that strongly this morning, because I do think actually the game was a bit closer than I thought it would be. I was correct that Paris is the better team right now, and Madrid may be getting a little bit too much benefit of the doubt. However, I did think that Paris would be have won by quite a bit more. And also, we said it earlier in the show, Paris benefited from a special teams touchdown and a defensive touchdown. So you take those away, and it's a kind of a different ballgame. But I was correct about that. And then, Maxie, you go on to my wrong one, which I actually would probably beat my chest a little bit more about this one. So I thought that Cologne will dominate the Sea Devils. And if you look at the final score, just a 1-score game. However, and we touched on that too, Cologne kind of did dominate the Sea Devils throughout the game, and then they just let the foot off the gas. I mean, they were up 32-13 with 2 minutes and 35 seconds left. So that's a little bit of a domination. So both my right and wrong, not so extreme there, but that's what we got for this week. We are going to take some pretty hard stances on Thursday. Okay. We're going to have some hot takes, guys. And that is something to look forward to on Thursday. Jamal says, before we pop on into our final segment, which is the MVP talk, Madrid versus Raiders, who wins? Chat, what do you guys think? That is a good question. Matt, what are your thoughts?
I'm gonna go Munich. Not Munich. No, even in this conversation. I'm gonna go Madrid. That's what I meant. I'm gonna go for Madrid. I think they've got a little bit more about them. I think they've got a little bit more playmakers at the receiver position. We saw that a little bit when Madden's gesture came out. They got some of the guys from Barcelona. I think their offensive line's a little bit better. It'll be close. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I favor the Madrid, maybe by about 4 or 5 points. I think it'll be a close game.
Okay. And Jacob in the chat, Jacob Steinbachner says Raiders win on heavy run. Not a blowout win, but just a secure win. I agree with that. Actually, I got to go take the other side. I like the Raiders. And after talking, so unfortunately, I didn't get to join the Surge on their game down in Innsbruck against the Raiders T-Roll. But obviously, I talked to the guys. And the sentiment there is that's a good football team. I mean, they won by 1 score, whatever it was. It was quite a close game. And that is a very good football team. And I would have to take the Raiders on that. Marcus is going with Madrid, so he's with you. But Marcus had a nice little mention there in the chat when we're doing our right and wrong segments. He said, blasphemy, y'all are never wrong. Just change the section from right, wrong to I told you so.
I'd have so much to talk about if it was that. I don't think we'd ever hang up the call. It'd just be me going on for hours about how right I am about certain things.
You could do that, record that audio, put on Spotify.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Heading into our final segment, guys, chat, you gotta hop in on here because we're gonna decide the 2 players that are gonna be nominated for MVP this week. We're gonna run through the guys that had great performances. We're gonna look at their stats here. Chat, jump on in here to help Matt and I make our decisions. Let's throw up the first one, Maxie. Oh, all right, let me take this one, Matt. Let me take this one. Bijan Harris. This is exactly, Matt, you talked about it on your YouTube channel. Don't look at him. Don't throw his way to Bijan Harris in another fantastic day. 2 interceptions, 2 PBUs. He had 3 tackles. And he had last week, he had the scoop and score on a hit that he made. So the forced fumble and scoop and score. He also had a big pick against Markel Castle, of all people. This dude is a baller. He is legit. He's one of the handful of defensive players in the league that I think would move a money line. So Bijan Harris, he's nominated.
Yeah, I have a new nickname for him too. It's Poison. Poison is my nickname.
Poison. There we go.
You die. Like, leave him alone. Right. Let's talk about Riley Hennessy, though. Another incredible game for him, as per usual. But this one, he had a little bit more action. He actually threw the ball a lot more often. We've seen him in a couple games, 29 for 37, proving he's not lost a step, even though he hasn't logged as many snaps and minutes as other quarterbacks. 281, 3 total touchdowns in only inside 3 quarters. It's something you've got to look at as well. Dominant. He pieced up a bad passing defense, which is maybe something you would consider for an MVP vote, but he's absolutely in conversation for MVP of the week and still MVP of the season.
That is true. He's still in that conversation for MVP of the season. All right, Maxie, next one. Chad Jeffries racked up some nice stats, 374 yards, 5 total touchdowns, went 24 for 33 as he led his Munich Ravens to a pretty big win over the Helvetic Mercenaries. So that way, we got to also take into account who the guys are playing when we nominate them. Not necessarily the most elite of talent in his competition there, but a fantastic day for Chad Jeffries.
That's fair. He's a great player. But also, so is Morales, 3, 8 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 3, 1 interception, 1 PBU. He looked great, and Aaron Jackson is not an easy man to cover. I'll make that very clear. And he looked pretty good. He was moving around the place. It wasn't like he was just on Jackson, but he made he's part of the team that made Berlin's passing offense look pretty mediocre. And that's something that not very many people have done, and Morales can take a lot of claim to that.
There we go. Maxie, what do we got next? Oh, Nazir Streeter went crazy in his debut for the Hamburg Sea Devils. This is ridiculous. 15 tackles, 2 TFLs, and a fumble recovery. Oh, and a punt return touchdown. I mean, unbelievable debut. And this is just a fantastic defensive performance. I love that I'm getting the defensive guys. I love that. There we go. It's all fate.
He's a baller. I'll take the offensive guys. Tommy Oyewo, 171 on the ground, 2 total touchdowns. Well, on the ground, say 99 on the ground, and also some in the air too. 2 total touchdowns. He's did that on like 8 touches also. So like his yards per play was incredible. He was spark plug, as we've seen, back to hopefully 2023 form is one of the best running backs in the league, no question. And I think he proved that once again.
There we go. Yeah, fantastic. Oh, Darrell Stewart Jr. coming back. He was injured. He played the previous week against the Raiders T-Roll. Had to knock off a little bit of rust. Didn't get too much action that week, and the rust was knocked off yesterday. He had 8 catches, 98 yards, and an unbelievable punt return touchdown where I don't know how he got out of that traffic. Take a look at the highlights there. Darrell Stewart Jr. in the conversation this week.
How can we not talk about MVP every week? It's the Glenn Tonga show.
We should rename the MVP the Glenn Tonga MVP of the Week award.
Yeah, just for a little asterisk, not including Glenn, because this actually technically is a below average game for Glenn, which
terrible
is
game.
absurd. 100 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, broke the single season rushing touchdown record held by Mondre London formerly. Glenn puts a name further into the history of the league. He's already the all-time rushing leader, and he's just added more single season accomplishments to his resume.
100 yards, pathetic. Next. Oh, Nandor Tot. I got to say his name a lot calling the game. He had 8 catches, 65 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Really helped kind of break open the game for the Enthroners, and he was one of the favorite targets for Jack Mangle. And he's a captain of that team, and he was having a lot of fun. Touched on it earlier. These guys were just enjoying this game. You could see they were just having a blast playing football, and he put on a show there. Nandor Tot.
Excellent plan. My guy, Hugo Cagles, former D1 defensive tackle. Defensive tackles don't get enough love. That's just straight up. But correct. I'm giving him my flowers. He was phenomenal. 4 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. His swim move is deadly. Like, he's so patient. He'll hold on onto these offensive linemen, wait for the right moment, just hit the nastiest swim move. I sent the highlights into our group chat just so I could show it off so much. He's a young guy, already one of the best interior defensive linemen we have. He can affect the run, he can affect the pass. I'm a massive fan of him coming into this year. This was his breakout game. It's one of the best interior defensive line performances I've ever seen. And he did all this in the first half, by the way. Because of the defensive line, they're rotating in. They've got a lot of great talent on that defensive line. And he was standout against a Galaxy team that a lot of people considered to be a good offensive line, and he torched them.
Absolutely. And the last one in our nomination process, legalize it. It already is in my home state of Oregon. Isaiah Weed, who we talked about earlier in the show, 23 for 33, 307 total yards, 3 total touchdowns. We said a guy that had some struggles earlier on in the season, but is maybe hitting his stride a little bit here, and he's just deadly with his feet as well. We knew that all year, but never really being able to do it through the air, and led his team to a great win. Kind of, like we said, kind of a dominant win for the most part over the Hamburg Sea Devils. I know the final score doesn't reflect that, but fantastic performance from the man, Isaiah Weed. All right. Those are our kind of nominees for the nomination. Those are our pre-nominees. Okay. Chat, guys, write who you think we should have and give us your arguments. Matt, is there anyone that you are leaning towards?
It's like 10 of them. But I think I've got to go Hugo Cagles, right? He was so good. Got to give it to the defensive guy. We don't give it up enough love. I'm going to go for him to be mine, but it doesn't mean that anyone didn't have a great, there was some amazing performance this week, but I think that he was spectacular.
I like that. Okay, what are we guys saying in the chat? Do we have any? No one yet. There'll be
an explosion of people going for Glenn. There'll be Isaiah. I think there'll be a ton. This is, I would argue, probably the most competitive week we've had for this.
Yeah, this is a really, really tough week because I also, I got my eyes on the defensive guy as well. Is it crazy if we have 2 defensive guys nominated this week?
That's crazy at all. They balled out. I think I know who you're going to go for.
They balled out. I mean, yeah, I know. I'm worried though. You know what I'm worried about is the casual fan on Instagram not understanding the gravity, because you look at the stats of who I'm thinking about. It's just two interceptions. Oh, just 2 little interceptions. It's incredible.
Easy to do, really, if you think of
I'm
it.
leaning towards Bijan again. Thomas Lustig says weed because he left Hamburg in the smoke. He does deserve to be in the conversation. I mean, I just think he's such a difference maker. And really, for me, the difference in that game, you look at that game, Isaiah Weed, no interceptions thrown. D'Angelo Fulford, 3 interceptions thrown, 2 of them to Bijan Harris. Man, I'm struggling. I'm struggling.
He did well on Tour and Justice as well. Like, he was locking up everyone. Like,
I know.
He was so good.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it, guys. I'm going Bijan Harris. Matt, are we having 2 defensive guys nominated for MVP this week? Are we doing
me and you are defensive guys.
Yeah.
We've been giving the offense too much. This is our time.
It's about us. Okay, this is how we live vicariously through these great players.
Yes.
Chat, what do you guys think? Yeah, we got Marcus says Harris. ELF fan says Harris. I'm feeling strongly Harris. Jamal says Harris. My pick's Harris.
I think that's fair. I'm gonna still go for Hugo just because of the 3 sacks was like for an interior D lineman. That's more sacks than like most people have got in the league, and he did it in 1/2.
Yep. All right, we're doing it. Let's lock them in. Those are our 2 nominees. So, guys, if you feel extra strongly, vote on Instagram. It'll be up on the ELF Instagram stories. We got 2 defensive guys as MVP nomination. All is right in the world.
Stop Sandro. Like they stopped Sandro going like he had like 2 yards to carry, less than that. And
that's true.
Like, just saying.
True. Jamal in the chat said if Harris played a full season at this rate, he'd be up for Defensive Player of the Year. 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, he might still. I mean, there's still like 5 or 6 more games.
Hussein Ying, like.
Yeah. All right, guys. That is going to be our show. That was week 9, our week 9 Monday morning recap of ELF football. Matt, what another fun show. It's heating up this season, man. We're entering into a fun time.
It really are. And we're getting more unhinged every show. So it's just going to lead to more insane takes. I mean, this one we had a defensive players. Glenn had a normal game. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. Sorry, Glenn. You set the standard at 200. If I don't see 200, I'm unimpressed now.
Unmoved.
Unmoved. There we go. All right, guys, everyone in the chat, Marcus, Jamal, Lucas, ELF fan, Thomas, Jacob, everybody else who I can't see in there. Thank you guys for joining us. Fun to have you on here. Matt, pleasure as always, everyone. We will see you on Thursday.
Goodbye.